If you watched my previous video about the pros and cons of living in Costa Rica, you'll remember that one of the cons mentioned was the cost of living. I've said it before and I'll say it again, living in Costa Rica is not cheap. In fact, a quick Google search of the most expensive country in Central America shows that Costa Rica is generally considered to be the most expensive country in Central America based on factors like high taxes on imports and agriculture protectionism. And if you've been following my channel, then you know that I spent December of 2024 in Costa Rica, and I found this to be 100% true. In fact, after talking to some locals, they agreed that Costa Rica is not a cheap place to live, and I am honestly shocked and surprised how they're able to afford to live there given the current value of the local currency, the colon, and the actual cost of living. So in today's video, I'm going to share with you some of my expenses from when I was in Costa Rica to kind of give you a better idea of what you can expect. So whether you're planning on going there as a digital nomad, a slow traveler, or you're potentially thinking of retiring there long term, the tips I'm going to give you will show you not only how much I spent, but also I'm going to give you some resources that you can use to help better calculate your own personal budget based off of what you'd like to spend and your desired lifestyle. And so I have collected a lot of my receipts from that trip so I can kind of give you guys an overview of what I spent. It's going to be super high level though, because again, I know each person's individual situation is different. I was visiting Costa Rica while taking classes at a local language institute. I was living in an apartment like a local in Heredia city. So my actual rent costs would probably be a little bit different than, if you're looking to move there long term, or maybe you're looking to move there with your family. So again, later in the video, I'll share with you some resources that you can use to figure out how much housing might potentially cost you if you're thinking about moving to Costa Rica. When I first arrived, one of the first things that I did was I went to the grocery store. So I went to Mas por Menos, which is essentially Walmart neighborhood market. So if you've ever been to a Walmart neighborhood market in the States, that's basically what Mas por Menos is. It's actually owned by Walmart, and you'll see a lot of the Walmart brands inside the store. I only purchased 8 items. Again, this was just for me. I wasn't shopping for every meal, but these are the things that I purchased and how much I spent. So I got a box of Coffee Mate Vanilla Creamer. That was 2,120 colones, which equals about $4.22 US. I purchased a box of stevia packets, which was 1,810 colones, which equates to about $3.60. I purchased a loaf of artisan bread, which is basically exactly the same bread as a Sara Lee Artisano that you'll see in the grocery stores here in the United States. And I paid 1,860 colones, which is about $3.70 US. Now, keep in mind, for the most part, I did try to purchase local items, and so I was hoping that would save me a few dollars. So I purchased some Monteverde cheddar cheese, which is a local brand. I paid $4,200. That equals about $8.36. I also purchased local coffee, the 1820 coffee in the 500 gram size, which is about just a little bit over a pound. I paid 4,060 colones, which is about $8.08. I also bought some sliced deli ham. It was about a pound of sliced deli ham. That was 3,520 colones, which equals about $7 US. And then I purchased a package of purified bottled spring water, which was just the Walmart brand. It was 3,160 colones, about $6.29. Now in Costa Rica, they do not do plastic bags. So I actually also ended up purchasing this small recyclable bag at the checkout, and that was 120 colones, which is about 25 cents. So how much did I spend? Well, it's important to note that taxes and import fees are quite high in Costa Rica, and those are actually included in the price. So when you look at the full breakdown of all the things I spent, it was 20,850 colones, including those taxes that I mentioned. One of them is at 1%. Other items were taxed at 13%. So with my grand total of more than 20,000 colones, it ended up equaling about $41.48 US. So I only bought 8 items. This is not even really a full grocery cart. And I spent on one person like over $40. So again, Costa Rica is not cheap. Now, obviously, things can vary depending upon what it is you're shopping for. I feel like if you shop at some of the ferias or mercados, then you could save a little bit of money. It's kind of like, going to a farmer's market or a food hall. And so you might find local people selling produce, selling meats. That will bring the cost down some, but because of those other import taxes and fees and like they mentioned on the Google search, the agricultural protectionism, Costa Rican foods are probably not going to be as cheap as you're anticipating. I feel like I would probably spend just as much money on groceries in Costa Rica as I do in the US. Some for more money for some things, less money for others, but in general, it's probably going to equal out to about what you pay for in the US. And again, just about every item that you like in the US is going to probably be considered imported in Costa Rica, so then the price is going to be even that much more. One thing that I did not purchase that was actually on my list was peanut butter, because I was absolutely stunned by the price. When I went into the store, they were out of the store brand. So all they had was basically Jif peanut butter. And it wasn't even like the big container. It was a little tiny container. And it was like $7 for a small jar of peanut butter. So needless to say, I did not end up purchasing peanut butter that day. But again, certain items that you kind of maybe take for granted in the States, or, maybe you live in Canada or the UK, when you go to Costa Rica, those items are going to be imported and they will likely be a lot more expensive than what you think they should be. If you were thinking about kind of trying to calculate your own groceries, again, I mentioned I was shopping at Mas por Menos. They also do have Walmart in Costa Rica. So you can go to either of those websites and find out how much your favorite items cost. And you probably will be surprised by some of the prices. I would love it if you could share in the comments any items that you looked up and how much they cost and what you thought about them. Wow. Also, if you've made it this far in the video, I'd really appreciate it if you could give it a like. Liking this video will help YouTube recommend it to other people just like you looking for information about Costa Rica. Now, let's move on to the next part, which is dining out. So we're still on the food topic. While I was there, I actually did dine out quite a bit. Again, I was a student at a school, so we had a lot of activities where we were out and about, and so I was picking up lunch. So I'll share with you a few of the ones that I had that kind of stood out. So the cheapest meal by far that I had while I was in Costa Rica, based off of what was included in the meal, was actually at a local place in San Joaquin. It was called a soda, which you'll find sodas are very popular in Costa Rica. Not soda like a drink, but it's called soda. It's kind of like, I guess it would be the Costa Rican equivalent of like a diner. Because remember back in the day in the US, they used to call them soda shops. So I guess it's kind of like that. And there they sell a lot of typical Costa Rican plates like the casado, which is the most popular one. So this particular day, we went to a soda in San Joaquin, and you can see in the picture, it was very generous portions. The casado included a protein, which in this case was a fried fish. It also had black beans, rice, plantains, and a small salad. You can see also we had some freshly squeezed juices. And then for our appetizer, which ironically was Mexican, we had sopa de Azteca, which was quite good. So that was a pretty big meal. So between the entree, the appetizer, the fresh beverage, I ended up spending about the equivalent of $10 US. And again, it was a lot of food. I was barely able to finish my plate. Honestly, I probably could have separated it out into 2 or more meals if I was really trying to be economical. But yeah, that was the absolute cheapest meal that I had while I was in Costa Rica. So a couple other examples I'll give you. I went to El Cafetero in San Rafael. It was a small mom and pop restaurant that has some very good artisanal sandwiches. I had a chicken panini and fries. I paid about 4,000 colones, which is just under $8 US. Another place I ate a couple times was La Fortina Mercado Gastronómico, which was in walking distance to the school. So I ate at La Barra Peruvian Fusion, and I also ate at a pizzeria that was in there. And so I have my receipt still from the pizzeria. I had one vegetarian personal pizza, and then I had one Pura Vida domestic beer, and the total was 7,700 colones, which is about $15.32 US. And then I had a nice lunch while I was there at a restaurant, again, in walking distance to the school called Estadero. I had an entree salad, so it was a pretty large portion of salad with all kinds of different vegetables and some avocado. I also had them add on some grilled chicken. Like a lot of restaurants, in Estadero, they had the gratuity mentioned on the menu. I believe the gratuity was 18%, so there was no separate tip, but they still broke it down on the receipt so you have an idea of what it cost. And the gratuity charge was 859.09 colones for a grand total of 10,566.82 colones. After you do the conversion, that equals out to about $21.02. So literally for a nice entree salad with some grilled chicken, tap water to drink, I still spent about $21. So not the most expensive lunch, but definitely not the cheapest when you're comparing prices to the US, Canada, or the UK. So when it comes to dining out, one of the things that I did not do was get any kind of food delivery. They do have Uber Eats, and they have another one called Pedidos Ya. I did not get food delivery because honestly, it's popular in Costa Rica, but it's a little complicated. I'll explain why in another video, but it is readily available if that's something that you're interested in. Okay, so we've talked about the grocery store and dining out. So we've got our food costs covered. Now we're going to talk about some of the other costs. So like I mentioned, I was staying in some apartments in Heredia City that belonged to the language institute that I was attending. So I paid them weekly for my apartment, and all my utilities and appliances and things were included. When you move to Costa Rica, if you were thinking about renting an apartment, it's important to know the difference between furnished and unfurnished, because an unfurnished apartment does not include any furniture or any appliances. So this means while it may be $200 or $300 a month cheaper for the apartment, you still are going to have to purchase a refrigerator, a stove, potentially a washer and dryer. You'll find a lot of the apartments in Costa Rica do not have dishwashers, and they don't always have ovens. So these are all things that you'll have to consider. I don't really want to get into the details of the cost, but I will share with you this resource that you can use in order to find out what your desired lifestyle could look like in Costa Rica. So we'll head to this website, Encuentra24. So really just about anywhere in Latin America that you want to move to has an Encuentra24 website. But for Costa Rica, you can just go in and look it up, and then you can see they have lists of furnished and unfurnished apartments. The prices are all over the place. We have $1,150 for a semi-furnished 1-bedroom apartment. We have some other apartments, a 2-bedroom luxury apartment in the heart of Escazú, which is considered the Beverly Hills of Costa Rica, listed at $2,050 per month. And I'm just going to scroll through here a bit. I'm not going to go through all of it, but you'll notice the prices kind of vary, and some of them are listed in dollars and some of them are listed in colones. You will quite often find when you do the conversion, the ones listed in colones are actually cheaper than the ones listed in dollars. Why? Because you're paying a gringo tax, which should be expected, honestly, if you're going to be paying in dollars. So if you're thinking about living in Costa Rica, I would recommend, obviously doing your due diligence and potentially visiting ahead of time if you can. Maybe consider staying in a hotel or an Airbnb while you're trying to figure out where you want to move so you can get a better idea of the prices. They also have realtors there that can help you with searching. But you will find, honestly, some of the best deals for renting in Costa Rica will be once you find your desired area. Just start walking around the neighborhood and see who has a sign in the window and find out what they're giving you for the amount of rent. And that is likely going to be your best deal. And there are some other things that you'll want to look for when you're renting a place in Costa Rica, not just whether or not it's furnished, but also a lot of places come with Wi-Fi. You'll want to do a speed test because you might find that the Wi-Fi is great for searching the internet and maybe looking at Facebook. But if you're trying to do video calls, maybe you're working from home, working remotely, it may be too slow. And a lot of ads will say free fast Wi-Fi. Do your due diligence and make sure that you test it out while you are there. So that you don't end up with like some people who the Wi-Fi is included, but then they still end up paying extra to get high-speed internet. So just keep that in mind. If you found one piece of value in this video, I'd appreciate it if you could give it a like. If you found 2 pieces of value in this video, or this is not the first video of mine that you've watched, please consider subscribing. It really helps me to grow the channel. So we've talked about housing, and now you know how to find housing in Costa Rica to meet your budget. So we'll talk about a couple other things that are important. So as it relates to transportation, transportation is actually pretty expensive if you're thinking about owning a car. You'd be shocked by some of the prices of cars in Costa Rica. You can do some research on that ahead of time. On that same Encuentra 24 website, they have different prices of both new and used cars, so you can kind of get a feel for what things cost. So definitely take a look at that. Oh, and one more quick note about the transportation. Like I mentioned, if you want to purchase a car, purchasing a car is quite expensive, even cars that are super old. And I saw a lot of really old cars on the road in Costa Rica. I saw like Toyota Corollas from the 1980s. I saw like Isuzu Troopers, like stuff that you probably, if you were to see it for sale in the US, if it's even still running, it's probably just like a couple $100. We're selling for thousands of dollars in Costa Rica, so keep that in mind. If you are wanting to live more in the city center, like closer to San Jose, and you have plenty of access to Uber or Didi, they're not terribly expensive, but you just really have to think about how the Ubers are going to fit into your overall budget. I found the Uber, though, to be significantly less expensive than what we have here in the United States. Most of the rides somewhere between like $8 and $10, but even that can add up over time. And then the other thing is your cell phone. So for me, because I wasn't there like an extended period of time, I went with my regular Verizon plan from the States. And I would like to mention that while I was there, I was on a legacy plan back from like when Verizon had rollover minutes. So like a super old plan. I wasn't even on a 5G phone. I had an iPhone 11 Pro, so pretty old phone for late 2024. And I didn't have any issues with the cell phone service. So not even having a 5G phone, like when I did have the service turned on, I was able to get good reception in most of the places that I went when I had the phone turned on. But obviously, if you're going to be there for a month or more, it would definitely behoove you to get some sort of a SIM card or some sort of local phone plan. So if you have a phone that's unlocked or you have the ability to add an eSIM, a couple things you might want to look into. One of the main like local companies for cell phones is Claro. And you can purchase different SIMs with different data plans, so that might be helpful. If you want to purchase something before you get there, there are some different international eSIM options. So one of the really popular ones for digital nomads is Airalo. And they have different plans based off how much you need to use. Some of the students that I met while I was at the school were using another eSIM company called Jetpack that has some different options than what Airalo has. So definitely take a look at both of those websites and see which make the most sense for whatever your cell phone needs are going to be while you're in Costa Rica. All right, so we've talked about groceries, we've talked about housing, we've talked about your cell phone and transportation. So while that is not an all-inclusive list of the entire cost of living in Costa Rica, this will give you at least some tools that you can use to kind of lay the groundwork to figure out what your budget might look like. I hope you found this video helpful. Thank you so much for watching. See you next time.